Activate Your Introvert, the weekly radio show to help you uncover and unlock the entrepreneurial skills in your business. In this week's show, Introvert Myth of the Week. Being shy is not the same as being introverted. Leadership Tip of the Week. How a train driver could improve your meetings. And a discussion with Alex Reed. Alex, the mindful marketing guy, helps quietly ambitious introvert transformation creators to unlock limiting beliefs, unlock their genius, and grow their online business. Just before speaking to Alex, though, in a few weeks' time, Series 2 of this show is starting. It has a very similar structure, but by your request, there will be a new section, Question of the Week, where I will answer one listener's question, and you can place yours at activateyourintrovert.co.uk and join me on the show if you like. Also, by popular request, the interviews will be slightly longer. Overall, the show will become 20 minutes long rather than 15. In the news this week, did you see the story about a Japanese train driver? He asked a colleague to look after the bullet train at full speed while he hopped to the loo. Obviously this was dangerous, and I'm not raising it as a funny thing. However, there was two interesting points. Number one, it was only discovered as there was an investigation into the train's performance when it arrived a minute late. But more importantly, it made me think about this week's leadership tip, which relates to running meetings. The tip has nothing to do with introversion and lots to do with the way many meetings are run, especially online ones. If you want full concentration in your meeting, make it easier to have a quick comfort break when people need it. Since meetings went mainly online, I've heard of many meetings and even training sessions lasting up to 2 hours where there are no toilet breaks. Is this a silly point? Well, possibly, unless you're the one who has to ask, and often you're doing so to everybody else's relief too. Quietly asking a few people, it seems that in face-to-face meetings, people are happier to ask to be excused than they are in Zoom meetings. But even face-to-face, here's a simple way of improving your meetings. Let everybody know in advance when the breaks will be. If somebody needs a break before then, stop the meeting. Get everybody to take a 5-minute break. In that way, nobody misses out on the discussions and everybody will be more refreshed. And by the way, if you're having a break in an online meeting, get people to turn their camera off for a moment, stand up and stretch and move, rather than just carrying on chatting. It will make a huge difference, especially to those who are on back-to-back meetings and don't move from their desk. Will your meeting end up more than a minute late as a result? Probably not, as it normally makes up time with extra focus in the discussion. What question would you like answered about introversion? Go to activateyourintrovert.co.uk and let me know. And join me on the show as well if you wanted to. One favour as well, I would be honoured if you would go to the iTunes store and review the show. It would help me enormously. But now it's time for Talking to Alex. Welcome, Alex.
Hey, John, great to be with you and looking forward to our conversation.
Just before we get in and start to talk about marketing and communications from and to introverts, what are you? Are you an introvert, an extrovert, or somewhere in between?
I would describe myself as a social introvert, certainly an introvert, the basis that I need my space to re-energize, but at the same time, I do enjoy a reasonable degree of social interaction.
I like that as a definition because, lots of people, and I'm sure you've had this as well, assume that introverts are just non-social people. And I fundamentally disagree with that, but I like the idea of saying I'm a social introvert. So thank you for that. What does being an introvert, what effect has that had on you and your career?
Quite profound when I look back. because while I didn't really realise it at the time, I was in many occasions in the workplace and sometimes outside the workplace getting quite overwhelmed and stressed and burnt out. I think that was happening because I was trying to play the extrovert. I was trying to, in those environments, be a person I wasn't really. Yeah, it was quite consequential. Only really after I really learned more about introversion and about myself that I was able to take some corrective action.
So, why do you now focus on marketing for introverts?
I've spent many, many years in the marketing world in many different corporates. I trained as a marketeer, I've got professional qualifications. So I've got that background, and what I now understand is that, particularly for small business owners, solo business owners, marketing is something that we all have to do in order to grow our businesses. But as introverts, it's not something that we naturally are keen to step into, where it means that we are having to promote ourselves either online or offline. What I'm aiming to do is take all my sort of life lessons from a sort of marketing standpoint and bring them together with my understanding and insights around introversion to make sure that those many small business owners, solo business owners can grow their business, but do it in a introvert friendly way.
Great niche, and I'm sure you're able to support a lot of introverted business owners in doing that, which is brilliant. Every time I think of the word marketing, I think about communications. Communications to me always are in two directions. So you're saying introverts don't particularly like to get out there and express themselves, hence why you're helping with marketing. Do you think that communications to introverts don't go very well either?
Yeah, it's definitely both sides, because from the more extroverted who are more comfortable and higher levels of tolerance for that social stimulation, quite easy for them to forget that there are many other introverts who've got lower levels of tolerance for that stimulation, and either online or offline kind of bombard them with information, bombard them with questions, without really recognizing what impact that's having on the introvert. So I think you've raised a very good point. There's an educational component here for extroverts and making sure that you can give introverts a bit more space and time in order to process and understand that when they have that opportunity, the introverts will come back and will be happy to engage, but they just need that extra space.
What you just highlighted there was fascinating, which you see, as do I, in fact, that it's not just in a face-to-face environment. There's online bombardment that goes on as well, which can just completely swamp particularly introverts. And that's largely because people don't understand it and just fire stuff over.
Yeah, it's just a basic lack of understanding. It's not intentional. I think in most part, it's just, again, the fact that from a personality standpoint, behavioral standpoint, there's just a lack of understanding, but that can be resolved by continuing education.
Can I get you to share a couple of ideas that you use to help them to market themselves more effectively?
Well, I think the first step is, and I like to do a little bit of a reframe in the sense that, particularly when you're venturing into this online world, can be very easily overwhelmed and start copycatting the more extroverted. So I help them to reframe and understand that ultimately, and you've made this point very well, John, that marketing is just about communication and relationship building. And so my kind of first strategy for the more introverted is to focus on their communication strength. And that may well be focusing on a small number of relationships at a deeper level, rather than feeling that they need to be the proactive person in every single communication, that they can actually respond to what others are saying, meaning that they've got time to process and identify whether the person that they want to respond to has some form of common interest with them, and then respond and build the conversation that way. So it starts to go deeper rather than taking this shallower approach where you feel you have to be posting to lots of different people in order to get ahead and get noticed.
So use your introvert strengths rather than trying to behave like an extrovert.
Yeah, we like deeper conversations. Yeah.
The other thing I always think of with marketing, many people go marketing and equate it to selling. But in effect, if I was trying to develop my career, I've got to market myself inside the larger companies as well. And I guess the same principles apply.
Absolutely the same principles. I've highlighted smaller businesses because that's my client base, but in larger businesses, we've all ultimately got a responsibility to manage our careers. So if you are working inside a larger business, then again, it is about helping your colleagues to understand how you work best, and your manager to help them understand how you work best, so that they can give you the space, the physical space, mental space. Yeah.
So taking some of the ownership of that understanding. But what do you think stops managers and leaders from understanding introversion as well as they might?
And there might be just a wider cultural piece here within organisations, because so many are driven by short-term goals that they're not carving out time to understand what introverts really need. So everything feels a bit rushed, and ultimately that just exacerbates the situation in terms of how introverts, struggle on many occasions in larger organizations. So yeah, I think it can be short-termism and a lack of planning from a people development standpoint, so that it's fully factored in to people development strategies.
Towards the end of the interview, I always ask my guests for a tip for introverts, perhaps to market themselves more effectively.
Yeah, my tip would be step back, take a little time just to look in within yourself and identify what you believe your strongest trait from a communication standpoint is. Focus your communication around that trait. So if you happen to be a great writer, focus your communication around that. If you're more of a natural speaker, because introverts can be great speakers, then focus on that. But just focus on that one thing that you do best and make that the thing that you get known for.
Great tip. And we were saying that many non-introverts don't necessarily communicate well with introverts. What tip would you offer a non-introvert to change that?
Slow down. In these environments where introverts and extroverts are mixing together, more extroverted, because they've got a higher level of tolerance and more energy, are more likely to be radiating that outwards and therefore de-energizing more the introvert. So to just slow down and take a little step back and give those introverts, again, that space just to think and to process.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alex. Been a great discussion. I've really enjoyed it. When the listeners want to get back in touch with you, what's your website details?
ownyourquiet.com, and you can also find me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time today. It's been really good to talk.
I love the conversation. Thanks for having me, John.
And now it's time for Introvert Myth of the Week. Those crazy stories that I hear and you hear that some people actually believe. Being shy has been in the media a lot lately, with some newspapers pillorying a certain royal couple. Now, I'm not commenting on that at all, but it got several people talking about what is shy, and kicked off again the ongoing shy and introvert rumour. Shyness and introversion are not the same. You might be a shy introvert, but I also know several shy extroverts. Yes, that might mess with your head for a moment, but it's quite possible to be energised when with people, but not want to speak out in that same group. Introversion is about energy. Shyness is, depending on the extent of it, about a reluctance or a fear of speaking out in a group of people. What's the practical point about this for you? In your team, don't confuse the two. Different issues need different tactics. For more about this, go to introvertinbusiness.co.uk and search on shy. I'm John Baker. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it useful. Please add a review on the iTunes store. There's a new episode every Thursday on your podcast provider or at activateyourintroVert.co.uk. Until then, go be introversial, activating your introverts, building your business.